Welcome to the orthoPAC podcast with your hosts Sam Dyer, Chuck Dowell, and Miles Gilbreth. Please join us as we attempt to fill in the gaps between education, current events, and real-world practice. Listeners, welcome back where we continue our conversation with Truett Smith regarding legislative changes in North Carolina and how that might affect your practice. What about our relationship with our MDs and with our nurse practitioner colleagues? I'm curious what they have to say about this, if anything, if you've seen anything. I know with the docs in my practice, it'll be a relief not to have to kind of do these forms every 6 months or whatever. What do you think about that? Have you seen anything, heard anything, any updates about our colleagues?
I've heard the same thing. The physicians that I react with, that, I have a relationship every day, they feel like it is a relief. It will reduce some of the paperwork burden that they've had. Also, when we bring in new PAs to the practice, we have an onboarding in our current system. And so that onboarding is a 12-month process. So right now there is a physician, once again, that's heavily involved in that. And this will, I think, allow more mentorship by other PAs in the practice. So once again, might make recruiting to the suburban areas, the urban areas, and the rural areas a little bit easier. So I think it will decrease some of that. The other part to your question was, how about our nurse practitioner colleagues? We hope, or I hope personally, that at some point they will have some sort of a similar agreement, because I think the way it stands, they still have the administrative burden. And I would like to see that reduced from our nurse practitioner colleagues as well.
It's great information, Truett.
It's interesting, Colorado passed their collaborative agreement back in 2023, and that's where I practice. Truett, I don't know if you can speak to it. There's a variability as far as the practice hours that are required. So at Colorado, it's 5,000 hours, but we also have an addendum that if you're changing practices and you have 3,000 hours, you have to have kind of a different collaborative agreement. Do you guys have that in the North Carolina licensure or the bill that was passed?
Yeah, we do not. Our rules haven't been written yet, so the rules still have to be written at the medical board level, but we don't have that change. And so basically, the way it stands, you will attest to your 4,000 hours in a new specialty. And then when you change practices into a different specialties, once again, you'll attest to the medical board that you have those hours. And so currently, we don't have any other restrictions that would affect that change.
It's a good trend. There's, correct me if I'm wrong, 20 plus states that have these collaborative agreements now, but the variability as far as the hours that are required, it would be nice if there's a standard variability across the board, although obviously that's difficult with different state bills that need to be passed.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it'd be wonderful if it was the same. I think it would be wonderful if there was portability to your license from state to state. That would be wonderful. We had to early on, so about 8 years ago, when we kind of started looking to change these rules, we sat down with the North Carolina Medical Society, and at the table, there were all the different specialties in North Carolina. And really, we started the conversation with, this is what we want to do. What concerns do you have? And then how can we come to some agreement to allow our profession to modernize? And so the hours were one of the things that came up. And the physicians that were involved in the meetings really felt like the 4,000 hours was an adequate amount of time to be trained to then live under this team-based practice. And then with a change of specialty, they felt that the 1,000 hours would be appropriate. So I think that likely those conversations happen in every state with the medical partners, but that's just how it landed in North Carolina.
Yeah, and I think one thing we tried to get across with the Colorado perspective, and I think it's nationwide, is that really the purpose of this is to expand access to care to patients. In Colorado, it's only 13% of PAs practice in a rural environment, but there's a lot of patients in these rural environments in this state and multiple states that need care, but unfortunately, because of the agreements, the PAs aren't able to provide that care. And so that was at least the hope for us. And I think the hope for you as well, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, that access is, I think, the biggest problem that we have in any state, and it's a huge problem in North Carolina, as I'm sure it is in Colorado. We really do think this will improve the access, bringing in more PAs to the state, and then allowing those PAs to disseminate in maybe some rural areas that we need medical care. I think it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's excellent to provide or to be able to provide better care for patients in all environments, but especially the rural environments. So as far as the compact licensure, my understanding, and I think you said this, it's not enacted yet. But one of the caveats to it, if you can maybe speak to it, is that there's still, whatever state you see that patient in, they're still based upon that supervisor agreement in that state. Is that correct?
Yeah, unfortunately, yes. So if you have multiple states that you can practice in, you need to know all the rules in all the different states. Once again, I think portability of a medical license would be an ideal for all medical providers, physicians, PAs, MPs, but unfortunately, that it's not a possibility at this time.
Yeah, I mean, I think COVID obviously brought telehealth into the mainstream as far as medicine and the ability to practice in multiple states from telehealth, or as you said, the ability to move to states if there's a natural disaster and you can go provide care there is helpful. But it's important for PAs that are entering into this or kind of thinking about this to know that they still have to look up that specific state's requirements because that still is necessary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think this changes as far as the billing for PAs? Like Sam said, if he opens up his own injection clinic and he starts to, run his own clinic, is there any change from that aspect that we have to think about?
The system that I work for in the Charlotte area, we're currently working on our bylaws because of this new law change. And so that's one of the things we're looking at. And so we want to be sure that there aren't any hurdles with billing. And so I think it has to be done state by state and probably has to be done with the insurers that reimburse kind of one by one, just to be sure that we don't have hurdles as we make these changes.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's going to come with time. And these are exciting changes that I think will grow the PA profession over the next, 5 to 10 years. But yeah, a lot of things still to be worked out.
All right. Truett, I appreciate you coming on today. A lot of great information, Chuck. Those are great questions. And any closing thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners?
I'm just elated that we have been able to practice this. I really think that it modernizes practice in North Carolina and something we've been looking forward to for a number of years. I do think that it will greatly reduce administrative burden. I think that it's a win for PAs in North Carolina, but it's also a win for our physician partners that have been doing a lot of administrative stuff that, we honestly don't have time for. I mean, we're in our roles to see patients and for practicing medicine, and I think it actually reduces a lot of that administrative stuff.
Awesome. Truett, thank you so much for coming on. Chuck, any other questions you have for Truett before we let him go?
We have a lot of young PAs that listen to the podcast. I think when I went to the PAOS recently, a lot of the younger PAs like the podcast. Anything you think you can kind of share with them as far as these changes and getting into practice in the first 5 years and how to kind of help with this, or if they want to get involved with growing this, like how did you get involved? How can they get involved with helping expand this?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see this happen in every state in the US. I think if you're in a state that is in the process of developing some form of optimal team practice, I would encourage them to get involved at the state level with their state organization. And the reason why is just because advocacy is so important. And going and meeting with your legislators, it makes an incredible difference. We created relationships over about 8 years and started with both with our medical colleagues and then kind of moved to the legislative level. But I think you've got to create those relationships. You've got to create the trust. You've got to create buy-in. They need to really feel part of this and feel like it's important in your state. And then hopefully then you can modernize the laws of your state as well. But strongly encourage all new PAs to become involved with advocacy. I think it's incredibly important.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Truett, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate your time. If you have any questions about it, go to the NCAPA website, ncapa.org, and they have a legislative section, and it explains more details about what was just passed. Truett, thanks so much. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining the orthoPAC podcast. We also welcome you to visit our website, paos.org, where members can download virtual conference content and get Category 1 CME. Also, if you're a non-member and you're interested in our CME content, please visit the aapa.org Learning Central